Okay, great. And Lisa
Hi.
Pointing is joining us, and she's our guest teacher coordinator. So we've been kind of tag teaming these efforts recently, and we'll be much better able to answer some of your questions probably than I am. But as I said, I'll kind of move pretty quickly here um, to try to just give you the basic info, and then really we'll have time for Q&A at the end. So let's dive right in. Here's our basic agenda. We'll talk about the need for guest teachers. I think you're probably pretty clear on that, so we won't dwell there too long. And the role, just what it really entails. The process for becoming a guest teacher, that's probably the main thing that some folks want to know. And then we'll leave time for questions and next steps. So again, feel free to add a question to the Q&A anytime. If there's anything not on the agenda that you were hoping we would cover, drop that in there. Here's just a really quick little, thought-provoking question for you. How long do you think students spend with guest teachers? If you added up all the days that they had a guest teacher over their K through 12, so that's 13 years in our school, how much total time do you think they've spent with in classrooms with guest teachers? Do you think it'd be about a month overall if you added up all those days, about 6 months, or about a year? You can just think on that. What's your guess? And I'll tell you the answer. And this is not just in our district, this is a nationwide statistic. It's somewhere between 6 months and a year, and it's often closer to a year. And what that says to me is it's really important that we get it right and that we have highly qualified people like yourselves, people who are interested in working with kids and maybe becoming teachers or who have some teaching experience, that kind of thing, because it's like a whole grade level, basically, if you add up all the days that that kids spend with subs or guest teachers over the course of their career. There's just a few headlines. I'm sure that you've seen these. One thing that I will add, though, is that we haven't changed our standards in Roaring Fork schools. We're not turning to parents and saying, anybody that can come in here as a warm body, come do it. We're not doing that. So we really want to keep the standards high and keep the focus on good teaching and good positive interactions with kids. But we certainly do have a shortage of guest teachers, and we'd love to have you help us meet that need and meet those kids' needs. As I just said, it's a big part of their educational experience. I'll also note that we had a guest teacher shortage prior to COVID. This is not a totally COVID initiated, dilemma. It's just that it's like with many things, COVID has accelerated it. So we've got more teachers out than we've ever had, and we've got fewer people who are comfortable stepping in to fill those spots. And some of that's because a lot of traditional guest teachers might be a little bit older. They might be more concerned about the potential health impacts of COVID on themselves, and they might just decide to sort of sit this year out. So we really need some support, and we're glad that you're here to hear about that. Again, add a question anytime or jump in and interrupt me because I'm going to move pretty quick. So why become a guest teacher? It's not the most glamorous job in the world, but it does have some benefits, and I think that they're significant. So it's flexible. Some people talk about it as sort of the initial, gig economy, gig working like Uber and stuff like that, where you can decide what days you work and you can decide where to work and how many jobs to take and stuff like that. So it's highly flexible. It is meaningful work, as I've discussed, and it's in there working with kids, which you must be interested in to even be watching this and joining us right now. And it's definitely a great way, and I think especially for those of you in the CMC education program, it's a great way to explore teaching as a career and really kind of dip your toe into different grade levels, different schools, different communities, different subject areas. You can really be in the driver's seat of what kind of experience you have as a guest teacher. So you can get a much better idea, and you get to know a lot of people. It's good networking than if you apply for a job in one of those schools and people already know you and say, yeah, this person was really great with the kids. They taught next door to me when my colleague was absent. Those kinds of things go a long way. So those are some of the benefits. And Lisa, you too, feel free to jump in anytime, anything that you want to add on benefits.
I will. Yeah.
Okay. So what's kind of a day in the life look like? First of all, just be aware that you choose your job. One reason we wanted to reach out specifically to CMC education students is that somebody told us that some people were chatting after class one day at CMC, and somebody said, oh, I thought if you signed up to be a guest teacher, you sort of had to be ready to go whenever the school called you. And it's really quite the opposite. We have a large pool of guest teachers. A school posts an opening for a spot. Somebody's going to be sick tomorrow, or somebody has to go do whatever they have to do and can't be at work. That goes through our online system that's called Frontline. ASOP is another name for it. Lisa manages that. And then all of you who are in our guest teacher pool, you take a look at it and you can say, I'm only going to sign up for things in this way, these grades, these communities, or maybe I only want it if it's a week out and I can plan around it, or maybe you're ready for a last minute sort of gig. So you choose your job. A full day is about 7:30 to 3:30. Schools do start at slightly different times, but we ask that people show up 30 minutes before the start of the day. So most schools start right around 8, give or take a few minutes. But some don't start till 8:30, actually, some of the high schools this year. So that would be a 8 o'clock start. And then most schools dismiss somewhere at 3, 3:05, 3:15, some as late as 3:30. So you stay a couple minutes after to clean up, and then you're out of there.
And guest teachers also, I'll chime in, Ben, can also work half days. There's a lot of half day options sometimes, which is nice. Like, oh, I can only do an afternoon here or there, but that can be real helpful. And that's 4 hours. That's a half day. And you get paid half the wage. So if it's half of 120, but I mean, it depends on what your schedule is. So there is some flexibility with the amount of hours for an assignment too.
That's right. Thanks, Lisa. So full day is kind of a full day, half day is the other way. And then on Wednesdays, that's kind of a nice day sometimes because we have early release Wednesday where we have professional development for teachers and staff in the afternoons. And guest teachers don't have to attend that. So most schools release at about 2 o'clock on Wednesdays. You still get a full day pay and you're done by 2. So you could decide I'm only going to work Wednesdays or something like that. We really need people on Fridays. Just things come up on Fridays, end of a week, and we have more absences than any other time. But we'd love to have your help anytime that works for you.
Mhm.
So the pay there, it is approximately 120 a day. A couple little nuances. You start out at 119 and then you go up to 121 if you get this little professional development credit. We know that that's not adequate pay for this kind of work. We're working on that with the mill levy override that passed this year. That rate will be going up. We can't say exactly what it'll be yet because there's a lot of negotiation involved in that. But for now, it's about 120 a day for short-term positions. And is it 190, Lisa, for the long term? Is that right?
Yes, about 190, 190. It's 190.96.
Yeah.
For
So about 190, almost 200. That's for a long-term position. I assume that if you're in the CMC program, you probably can't take a long-term multi-week sort of position. Those are usually when somebody goes on maternity leave or there's a vacancy that pops up because somebody leaves their job in the middle of the year and we need a long-term sub. And so with a daily substitute job or guest teacher job, you don't have to do any lesson planning. You come in, the lesson plans are there, and you follow the lesson plans to the best of your ability. And that's one of the main things that we really ask is that, guest teachers don't just teach whatever they want. It's important that they keep the students moving toward the learning targets that the teacher has them going toward. But the long-term subs, they do create their own lesson plans. So if you have time in your schedule at some point and you want to try that out, the real lesson planning and like you're the teacher delivering all the instruction, a long-term sub might be a better fit. Any questions there? I'll just pause there on kind of the benefits and the general layout of what it's like to be a guest teacher. You can unmute or you can add it to the Q&A or the chat. Any of those works. Okay, I'll keep moving, but you can keep asking questions anytime. The process. So the process can feel a little onerous at first, but I just want to make it really clear. We are here to hold your hand and support you through that. We're not just going to drop you off and say, you figure it out and we'll see you on the other side. The main thing to know is you start with the Roaring Fork School District application. It's our standard application. Takes about 15 minutes. There's some questions on there that you don't even really have to fully answer because they're answered in the state thing, and Lisa can help you through that. We're also going to have an event 2 weeks from today on February 1st where we will sit down and walk you through the entire process, and that'll be in person at CMC. So the application to Roaring Fork Schools is pretty minimal. The CDE, Colorado Department of Education, substitute teaching authorization, that's actually the bigger part. And that's, again, to make sure we're keeping those standards high. We're doing thorough background checks. It's fingerprinting through CDE. It's different if you're a student teacher right now in our schools. It's a different fingerprinting process. that you do have to go through. But again, we'll help you with that. You can get a 1, 3, or 5-year license. Most of you, I'm guessing, would be a 3-year license, because a 5-year is if you've got a teacher license already, and a 1-year is if you don't have a college degree. Is that right, Lisa? 3 years kind of in between.
That's right. If you have a college degree, a 3-year authorization. Correct.
And so you can get that, and then and again, we can help you with it. We can pay for the fingerprints. We can sit there right by your side and help you fill that out so that you're successful with that. And then once you get those two done, you get your district application done, and then CDE sends us your background check based on your fingerprints. And I'll just note there, they're not looking for every little traffic violation or something like that. It's the sorts of violations or felonies on somebody's record that would cause anyone concern about working with children. So I don't expect anybody to have any of those if you're going through this process, but that's what they're looking for. And then Lisa generally conducts a pretty straightforward interview. It's really helping to understand who you are and why you're interested and what kind of placements would work for you. And then we'll do an onboarding session, and that totals up about an hour. So, it's a couple hours commitment to get through that process. There's a couple weeks wait time as the fingerprints go through, and CDE gives you your authorization. But we will help you out and try to have you on board as quick as possible. Lisa, anything you want to add to those steps?
Sure. The onboarding process, it can be a la carte. I really do it according to, if people have a lot of questions and are very um, apprehensive about guest teaching, and we can show video clips of teachers in action and positive behavior approaches and styles and techniques, set you up with a time to observe in a classroom. Because I just think of some people are like, I'm ready to go. As soon as I get my fingerprints done, show me how to use absence management, and I'm good. And some folks just aren't that comfortable. So it really is tuned to where people are at and get started. And also sometimes I will recommend to people, you may want to guest teach in a paraprofessional position. Your pay would be the same, and where you're working as a support staff person, that where they need a substitute that day. If you're not ready to take on a class of 20 kindergartners, you don't. That's how I got started 17 years ago. It was like, well, I can do a paraprofessional position in special education and kind of see how it works. And then it just grew from there, because I think everybody has different comfort levels of where they want to start. So you don't have to stand in front of 38th graders for the first day out and teach algebra, so just so you know that there's so many options out there for assignments.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. And just to add there too, like if there is a content area that's kind of intimidating to you, like, high school math or something, of course you don't have to take those jobs. But also I've been doing quite a bit of subbing myself recently, just because we have been so short staffed that it's kind of all hands on deck. And what I've noticed is most teachers leave a lesson plan that's not oriented toward this guest teacher standing at the room and delivering, all new content that you have to be expert in. It's much more oriented toward the students are working on this task. Here's the materials for that. They basically know what's going on. You're helping them continue along that path. So, that's just something to be aware of, that you could walk into a class that you're not the subject matter expert in and probably do okay. Let me see. I went back one. Okay. Any questions on the process? I'll show you where to get to all this in just a moment. All right. Oh, that's funny. Maybe I'm going back and forth for some reason here. There we go. Now we're going to slide 8.
There you go.
Resources and next steps. So the main resource I want to let you know about is our website. So that's one of the things that we did recently, was we established a web page for guest teachers. So if you go to rfsd.org, hover over the employees tab, and then under HR, you'll see guest and in parentheses substitute teachers. You can also search the site for the word substitute or guest teacher, and you'll get there. So again, rfsd.org, hover over employees, and then you'll see these different columns. And this is under HR, where all our stuff about getting hired is located, prospective employees and all that. And once you get on that site, you'll see a guide to exactly what we're talking about. Click here to do your Roaring Fork Schools application. Click here to do your fingerprints. Use this code, and Lisa's contact is there. So that's what I would recommend if you're interested after this meeting, is go on the website and use that as your main resource, and then reach out to Lisa. As she says, she does a lot of individual support for folks as they go through it. I think we're almost at the end here. Other kind of next steps. So the webpage is the main one. Lisa is your main contact. 2 weeks from tonight, February 1st, as I mentioned, 5 o'clock at CMC, Lisa and I are going to come on site and help anybody who's interested in getting their application going. I would encourage you, if you're really interested, get it going before then, and then wherever you sort of get stuck, we can pick it up at that point, or you can reach out to Lisa ahead of time.
And
And
I
then
was
we
just
are,
going to say that, Ben, sorry to interrupt, but
no, it's
just
good.
anything that if you want to get started, that's what I do with the majority of my hours. That and payroll is just make sure that I get people set up and running and as efficiently and quickly as we can get you started. Because it's already going to be February before we know it. So,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
right.
Mhm.
Zooming on by. And then we are making plans. Lisa and I are collaborating on more professional development for guest teachers, really elevating the role, just like we always are supporting both new and experienced teachers in their work, observing, giving feedback, giving tips and resources and articles and videos and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to do that as well, and just support folks. So you might just want to put on your calendar this Tuesday, February 1st. You might want to jot down the webpage. If you Google it, Roaring Fork Schools, you'll be there, or rfsd.org, rfschools.com. There's a lot of different ways to get to us, so we're kind of hard to miss. And that is, wow, in 20 minutes. That's all I have. So that's intentional. I just wanted to get to there. And I think Rich is from the newspaper and had talked to us about dropping in to see what we're talking about, because he's doing an article on guest teaching. So it might just be Liz with questions, but maybe I'll stop the recording. And I'll stop sharing. And if you have any questions, we can talk about those now.